Welcome back to the Aussie Shed, ladies and gentlemen, for another episode of Project Fairlady. So what we're going to do today, folks, is we're going to start to populate the area in front of the radiator, which is going to house the oil cooler, the air cleaners, the blow-off valves, a bit of AC stuff, a few bits and pieces. But the main thing we've got to do, folks, is work out how the hell we're going to fit everything in. Of course, none of the stuff that's going back in is the stuff that came out. So let's move in a little closer and have a bit of a gander. So the first thing that we have to sort out is the oil cooler. So your original oil cooler, folks, it mounts off this bracket here. Goes on something like that. And then we've got the mighty Calsonic factory twin turbo oil cooler here that then mounts onto that. Look at it, what a ripper. In my opinion, folks, it's about as useful as tits on a bull. And that particular oil cooler, folks, it works off a pressure relief valve on the oil filter tree that over a certain PSI, I think it's about 50 pound of oil pressure, will then feed oil into that oil cooler and then returns back to the sump via a hose that's got a restrictor fitting in it so you don't lose too much oil pressure. Maybe it does a little bit on a stock engine, but I'd really be interested to see a back-to-back comparison between having it and not having it on a stock turbo engine that's doing a bit of hard work, because I really don't believe there'd be that much difference, if any. So what I'll be doing, folks, is I'm ditching the entire original system and I'm going for a full flow setup with a Mocal thermostatic sandwich plate mounted on the underside of the oil filter tree, between the oil filter tree and your oil filter, obviously, with AN10 lines going back to that. Now, if you remember on the original teardown of this car, there was a secondary oil cooler mounted over here that was really, really badly done. There was some absolutely terrible brackets welded onto the front cross member, and the whole thing was just, oh god, it was terrible. Go back and have a look at the video, folks. I'll leave a link to it if you're really interested, right there, of what that thing actually was. I'm not using that either because it's a no-name brand. I don't know its history. It's not particularly what I want for the car as well. So let's go to the bench and I'll show you what I'm going to run. So there's a bit of a comparison, folks. That's the factory Calsonic. That's the 19-row no-name brand that was on the car additionally. And here's the cooler that I'm going to run, which is a 34-row. It's an Aeroflow brand. I haven't used the Aeroflow brand oil coolers before. This is a first for me. They appear to be like a Chinese knockoff of a Cetrab. I run a Cetrab 34-row, which is identical to this on my 370 GT. Absolutely perfect setup. So basically what I'm doing is I'm duplicating the system I have on my other car. It also uses a Mocal thermostatic sandwich plate, and I've had absolutely no issues with the car running too cool because of the size of the oil cooler, and it controls oil temperatures perfectly. So we'll put these guys to the side so you can have a bit of a better look at it. So what we've got to do now, folks, is we've got to work out how we can mount this in the front of the car. So I'm going to mount it in the same spot that the factory oil cooler was. So let's head back to the Fairlady and see if it's actually going to fit. Alright, so we've got to fit in somewhere there. Obviously the AC electric cooling fan has to go in there yet, which is going to bring it out probably here somewhere. And you can see we're getting very close to the top here, but in my opinion, it will fit, which is absolutely fantastic. Now all we have to do is work out how to mount it. So what I've got here, folks, is a cardboard template that I just quickly whipped up. I'm using the bolt pattern on the back here. That's our layout from our original bracket there from the Calsonic oil cooler. And the front of it is set up like that for the 34-row cooler. So I've checked this distance off the front there. It seems to be roughly right. So I'll just go and test fit it on the car and I'll report back. So it does appear to fit, folks, but I can't actually support the oil cooler on it because it is just a piece of cardboard. So what I've done is I've transferred this onto a bit of MDF, 3mm MDF I guess it is, and I've made a couple of little changes to it. I have narrowed it down a bit, as you can see here, because it seemed to be sort of poking out plenty. So what I'm going to do now, folks, is I'm going to go and bolt this down onto the car. That way we can actually rest the oil cooler on it and make sure that it's all going to fit. So I've just grabbed some bolts with some pretty big washers on them, you know, just to sort of give me a little bit of purchase, so that the thing hopefully doesn't sort of pull through while we sort of mount this on and see if it's going to fit. So far so good. Let's just slip the AC fan on there. Make sure that everything else is gonna fit. That's the biggest trap, folks, fitting stuff up without having everything in place. You can really come unstuck real easy. Oh, that's not long enough. Hopefully this one will do it. Alright. Okay, let's see if it fits. Yep, that's looking pretty good, folks. It's not super strong, but it will sort of sit there. By the look of this, I can sneak back a little bit. I do have a little bit too much room between the fan motor and the cooler there, even with it kind of lifted up and allowing for the MDF buckling like it is. It does seem to be pretty good. I do have clearance at the top, even though it is sort of quite tight. So there's only one thing left to do, folks. I know we're nearly there. We have to duplicate that onto a piece of aluminium. So what we need, folks, is a bit of aluminium flat plate, about 150, 160, or by about 400 will do us, which I don't have any here in the Aussie shed at the moment. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to jump onto eBay and see if I can grab a piece, maybe 4 or 5 mil. I'll see what I can get, and I'll be back. Right, folks, it's a couple of days later now, and I managed to score exactly what I need. I got hold of a piece of 160 by 400 mil, 4 mil thick aluminium flat plate on eBay, and I made that out of it. Couldn't help myself, folks. I just got all excited and I did it off camera. So that's basically what we have there, folks. That's our oil cooler mount. It's pretty true to the original piece here. I did reduce it slightly in width, as you can see here, which is what I mentioned. It needed to go just a little bit tighter in. The holes in it, I've just done those with a hole saw, really just because you know, there's no support needed in the center there. Really, it's just coming out on this angle along both sides to support the oil cooler, and you know, the bolt area at the back, and plus it looks pretty flash. I have countersunk these holes at the back, so I'm using countersunk screws on the back there. That's just because the thickness plus the bolts interfered with the cooling fan at the back there. So with using countersunk bolts, it just sort of gets it right out of the way. So let's go and fit this up, and see what it looks like. Very nice. So just some 6mm Steno countersunk bloody bolts at the back there, screws, whatever you want to call them. I'll whack those in. And at least doing this, folks, we're able to use the original mounting points off the original oil cooler. So, you know, it's a win-win. fits very well. There's no interference with those mounting bolts anymore. The countersunk ones, they've done their job perfectly. Right, that's looking pretty good. Ah, yes. That's the glory shot, folks. I'll just slip a couple of these in to hold her in position. Excuse my head in the shot. Alright, so that's not too bad, folks. It appears that everything actually fits. There's still clearance with the fan motor on the back. This is all going to work, I think. You think I'd know for certain, wouldn't you? But I think it's going to work. So the next thing we need to do, folks, is we need to throw the front bar on so we can get a bit of an idea of our front clearance, because what we have to look at now is some pod filters. So I do have a front bar, folks. It's not the original bar that was on the car when I bought it, because it was in you know, really bad nick. It had quite a few breaks in it and it was just unusable. But this bar did come with the car as a spare, and this is a very, very good condition factory twin turbo bar. It has a fiberglass lip on the bottom, which is really great. It doesn't hang down any lower than the stock bar. It just pokes out a bit to give you a little bit more scooping. So let's get him on and see how much room we've got. Oh, obviously we've got to put the bar support on first, but so the bar support and the bar, we'll get it on and we'll see what's going on. So the front bar's mocked up, folks. I'm very, very happy with the front bar. It's a great unit. What I've done to the bar is I've taken the fog lights out and I've put ducts in that I bought online from somewhere. They've been, I don't know, I've had them in a box for ages since I first got the car. They're just stuck in there for a moment. I'll probably urethane these guys in. But, so yeah, I've taken the fog lights out. And I am going to work around the fog lights. But, there is another issue I've found, folks. Come with me and we'll have a look. So I've been trying to fit up the bar, folks, and initially the bar wouldn't fit on this section of the guard here, and you can see there was a bit of filler in it, and I thought, oh, I'll dig that bit of filler out and see if I can get it to fit a bit better. Because it had changed this length here. It was sort of too long and it was stopping it fit up. So I started knocking the body filler out of it, and it just got worse and worse and worse. It was a good 5 to 10 mil thick through here, and just in a really bad way. So I got all the body filler out of it. I've been working on it for a while with hammers and dollies, just doing a bit here and there, and I've got the shape a lot better, but it's still not right. It's quite distorted because it seemed like it had had quite a whack on there, and it seems like it's a bit stretched. So it is repairable, but I'd like to get hold of another guard that hasn't got any repair work on it, obviously, just so that, you know, instead of having a repaired panel, I've got a panel without repairs. Preferable if you can get them. At the moment, you can still get good second-hand parts for these things. So for me, that's the best option, folks. So if you're in the Sydney-Newcastle area and you've got a passenger side front guard for a Z32, drop me a comment, because I may still not have one by the time this video comes out. So at the moment, we're just sort of working with that. We'll see what happens. So the bar is on, and that's the main thing. I have a Twin Z center panel for it, folks. I bought a whole heap of stuff a while back for it from Z1, and that clears all the oil cooler fittings and all that, no worries at all. So that's going to go on there. Lots of clearance, but you know, absolutely perfect for what I want with a car. I also have a Twin Z rear spoiler for the car as well, which is we'll just set it off nicely, I reckon. Anyhow, so the next thing we want to do, folks, is work out what space we've got left that we can fit some pod filters in there. So I've got me some K&Ns over here. Now, I'm probably shooting myself in the foot here. So these are the biggest with a 2.5 inch inlet size that I could get. They're actually the same air cleaners that I use on my twin turbo 370 GT, and I've found them to be really, really good. They're very big. I'm just praying that I can make them fit in there, because I am a big believer in fitting the biggest air cleaners or pod filters that you possibly can. If you saw the disassembly of this car, you'll remember it had 2 tiny pod filters on it. Both of them were sucked right in, which is a really obvious sign of either, one, too small a filter, or a filter that's blocked. Now, I'd say it was a bit of a combination of both, but the filters that were on it were definitely too small. I've seen a lot of cars on the dyno, and if you can take the filters or the air cleaners off and get a really big gain, then instead of thinking, oh yeah, wow, look how much power you can make without an air cleaner, you really should think about how you can make that power or close to it with an air cleaner. So you obviously have to try and get more flow. So you need bigger, better pod filters, etc. to just look at coming close to what you can get without running a filter. So yeah, as I say, bigger is better when it comes to filters, more airflow. Are they going to fit? So where I'd like to fit them, folks, is down here, tucked in as tight as I can under there, so they don't hinder airflow to the radiator too much, or the oil cooler. But whether or not I'm going to be able to do that, I might just be living a dream, folks. I might just be imagining it. My intake pipe for this comes out under the headlight here, so I've just got to see if I can do it, fabricate some pipe up and see if I'm actually going to be able to do this. The other issue too, folks, is I also have to fit a blow-off valve on either side here, and also there's a bit of AC stuff in the way here. The dryer on the other side there sits roughly where I'm going to want to put the air cleaner. So I've got a few issues to deal with here, folks. A few issues. I guess we'll see. It's going to take a bit of thought and a bit of brain work. So I'll spend a bit of time on this, folks, and I'll be back once I come up with a solution. So I'm just about to fit up the last bit of pipe work, folks. So I'm nearly there. So this is our piece that'll sort of drop into that pod filter there and go up into the piping that I've already done over that side. You can see I've used a donut on this end here just to get the tight radius that I need to bring this down without taking up too much space. You can see the mandrel bends that I'm using, you know, typical radius for a mandrel bend, nowhere near as tight as what you can get with a donut. So I do keep a couple of donuts here just for when I need to do any tight bends like that. You can see there's a bracket on there. I do have brackets throughout all the piping that I've built to sort of secure it in position, and I've made use of most of the factory mounting points when making all these brackets up. So I'll get this on, and I guess we'll see if these filters are going to fit. It does fit, folks. Only just though, it's very, very tight in there, but it's my own fault. I have kind of made it sit as tight in against everything as I could, just so that so I'm creating the least amount of blockage for the airflow. You know, I'm really tucked in tight into that corner, and I'm also as high as I can be, so I completely missed the bottom air intake there with it. So it's actually getting air from this this upper intake slot, but yeah, you can still see it through the bottom one, but it's not blocking a whole heap. There we go, that's a bit better view of it. I'll get this one on, folks, and I think we'll take the front bar back off, just so I can show you what we've got, and you know, how I came to the positions that I've arrived at with it. Alright, well they fit, that's a start. Obviously this oil cooler is going to have another bracket, folks. There's going to be a piece that runs across the top to brace it at the top, because you can see it's a bit springy and everything. So yeah, future bracket, but again, I've got more crap to fit in here first, so I don't want to sort of bugger myself up. That's what we have in there, folks. I think what we'll do is we'll get the front bar back off and see what it looks like behind there, and work out what space we've got left to be able to sort of fit the blow-off valves, which I reckon is going to be really, really tricky. So I'll get the bar off, folks, and we'll come back for another look, eh? And that's what it looks like with the bar off, folks. You can see it's starting to get quite busy in there. Yes. You see the issue over here. The dryer for the AC was in the way, so I couldn't get this air cleaner back enough in there. So it is just slightly in front of the oil cooler there. But most of the air comes in down really low and across in this slot here. Plus there's the other slot in the center panel. So I don't think the airflow is going to be too compromised. I'm going to build some quite comprehensive ductwork in the front here and seal off everything that doesn't need to be open, you know. So hopefully that'll get me back a bit of efficiency that was probably lost with the original setup with this. And, you know, we'll just have to suck it and see, folks. As I often say, sometimes you just have to suck it and see. I'm going to have a lot of temperature monitoring sensors on the car, so I should be able to keep track of what's going on and where and all that sort of stuff once it's all up and running. And if I need to make any changes to it later, well, so be it. But hopefully that won't be the case, and it'll be absolutely okay for what I'll be using the car for. That's about it for this video, folks. Leave a comment and let me know what you think of my oil filter and pod filter setup. And in the next video, I'm probably going to be looking at blow-off valve location. Probably going to take me a little while to nut out where to fit them because there isn't a lot of room, but I'm sure it's doable. I've also started on the engine wiring loom, so a video will be coming up on that pretty soon. So as always, thanks for stopping by the Aussie Shed. Always a bloody pleasure to have you here. And, you know, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel and all that stuff. And I'll bloody well see you on the next one. And if I don't put another video up before now and Christmas, a very bloody Merry Christmas to you all. Cheers.